Marriage is a commitment. Are you in it for the long haul or maybe slowly drifting apart? Would you like to fix it? Stay right here. You're watching The Difference.
In a world of busyness and distraction, do you ever feel like your family or your marriage is drifting off course? If so, this show is just for you.
Today on The Difference, we're talking about how to live with intention in your family and in your marriage. Rodney and Michelle Gage are founders and lead pastors of ReThink Life Church in Orlando, Florida, and they're here to share tips, lessons, advice on how you can identify if your family and marriage is drifting and how to get them back on track with purpose and intention.
Don't go away, you're watching The Difference.
Do you want to learn more about the show? Follow us on Facebook at Matt and Kendal Hagee, on Instagram at Matt Hagee and at Kendal Hagee, on Twitter at Matt Hagee and at Kendal Hagee. The Difference with Matt and Kendal Hagee.
Welcome to The Difference. Our guests today are Rodney and Michelle Gage, and they've written a book entitled Family Shift. And I think it's not only an appropriate title, but it's something that a lot of people probably need and don't realize it. Because in many cases, families are today being defined by culture, they're being defined by situations, they're being really hijacked by a number of things, and there's a place where you can go and look and find out what the family is supposed to look like, accomplish, and how it's supposed to generationally succeed. So what is it about Family Shift that people need to know?
Well, as you just hit on, there's a major cultural shift that's happening. And unfortunately, that shift is causing many families, couples to drift further apart rather than closer together. Right. And I think they have good intentions with a lot of the choices they make and things that they often think will draw them together. But so often those good things over time can sometimes actually cause challenges and setbacks, or maybe just really cause a subtle drift that they never thought would ever happen. Right. And so our hope and really the purpose for this book is really, if anything, is just to help people understand that, hey, if you find yourself maybe drifting away from what could be or should be, or what that intended dream was, originally set out to accomplish, well, it doesn't mean that there's no more hope for you.
Correct.
You can stop right where you are and you can make a shift. And you can begin moving in the direction that you really want to move into, and you can ultimately achieve what it is you're desiring to achieve in your marriage and your family relationships. It's just, how do you do that? And we wanted to come alongside and not just give them hope, but give them how-tos so they can make that shift that will ultimately make a lasting difference in their marriage as well as in their family relationships.
Well, and I think the how-to is a very important factor, because one of the things that never made sense to me, but I've heard it, you've heard it, a lot of people get to hear it, we grew apart.
Yes.
I think to myself, if you grow apart, could you grow together? If you went this way, could you go back that way?
Absolutely.
And sometimes they get to a point where they think it's just easier to step out of this relationship than turn back into it.
Yes.
So some of the how-tos are in your book, but also you identify ways that people drift.
Yeah,
because
we have an acronym for drift. Tell us about.
It's very easy to identify, okay, here's where we are, but it's more important to know, okay, this is where we're headed. So how does the drifting start?
Well, I mean, you want to take it on?
The first letter is D, and it's disappointments. They hit us all.
What?
Disappointments hit us all.
Marriage involves disappointment?
You've never been disappointed, have you, babe?
Never. 17 years of successful achievements.
Experience.
That's right. We all have disappointments, and it can cause us to drift. Regrets, things that we did, and we look back and we regret. It can cause us to drift
or
away
things you
from
wanted to do and didn't do.
Right.
Sometimes I talk to couples and it's like, well, I really wanted to fill in the blank, and they didn't feel like they were supported. So, that disappointment, regret kind of thing led to an offense that they were like, I'm holding this, and you're sitting there going, well, let go.
Yeah.
So you got disappointment, regret, what's next?
Isolation. And this is huge in our culture,
So I'm mad, I don't want to talk.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Feel alone.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
And then regrets, the disappointment, regret, isolation, and then frustration.
Frustration.
Yeah. It can get us get us bad, and then the tension begins, and then we just
I
begin
thought T
to...
was teach you a lesson. It's just tension.
No tension.
Well, and it's interesting because I think anybody who has been in a relationship at some level can recognize each of those things. I mean, they happen in friendships, they happen in business relationships, but the thing about marriage relationships in the world that we live in today is as the culture shifts, the quit option is the easy option. Yeah. The stay option is the one that requires the work, you know.
And really the whole drift analogy, if you will, you know, that's not the root problem. That's really the symptoms. And that's where I think, you know, many couples or families who find themselves drifting further apart, you know, what is it they look for? And if they feel any of those things, if they see any of those things happening in their home or in their marriage, well, those ought to be some red flags. Yes. And they probably already know that they're there. But the question is okay, well, how do we deal with where we are, and how do we work through that in order to get our family back or get our marriage relationship back? And so, again, I think there is hope, no matter how far away they may have drifted. Yes, that's right. But it's never too late to start doing what's right. It's never too late to go back and recapture what perhaps has been lost. And, you know, I think the main thing is for a lot of people is just to know that, you know, with God's help, they can overcome whatever it is that's caused them, you know, to end up at a place they never intended to be.
Yeah, and I think a big thing for people to also put into the equation is want to. You know, there are oftentimes it's unfortunate that people don't want to be honest about what do you want to do. You know, do you want to fix this, or do you want to stay offended by it? Because sometimes they can drift and get to such a place that their offense has become their identity. Their regret has become their identity. Their disappointment has become their identity. And they're afraid they're not gonna have anything to talk about if they let go of that and start to work back towards getting together. So we've talked about drift. When we come back, we're gonna talk about shift, because we've got some things that are gonna help us go from here back to where we should be. When you come back to The Difference, you're gonna hear things that are gonna change your home, your family, and your marriage forever. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this.
It is a privilege to live in America. Our forefathers made great sacrifices so that we could live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Today, America's future hangs in the balance.
We must recognize that we are in danger of losing our precious freedoms.
In appreciation for your support, we will send you our annual Christmas ornament, a Western wall motif handcrafted in Israel, and a Vote the Bible yard sign. For your gift of $150 or more, you'll receive our wooden art piece printed with the Pledge of Allegiance, as well as a Bible Positions on Political Issues booklet.
It's time to stand up and let our voices be heard. Together, we can take America back. Our children and grandchildren deserve a better America.
Send your best gift today. Call the number on the screen or visit jhm.org/USA. We are in a battle for the soul of this great nation, our children's future, and our way of life. Let's stand together and join Pastor John and Matt Hagee as they lead us in prayer for the leaders of our country, Israel, our families, and our children. Sign up today and receive 14 days of prayer and proclamation for America. Visit jhm.org/America, and together we can make a difference in our nation.
Welcome back to The Difference. We're here with Rodney and Michelle Gage. And in our first segment, we talked about drifting apart. And it happens for a myriad of reasons. Sometimes busyness of schedule, sometimes, you know, family goals that really don't have much to do with the family. They have to do with individuals. Regardless of the reason, when people get to that place where they are not where they want to be, they've drifted. Now, how do they shift to get back to where they belong?
Yeah, you know, a few moments ago, I was going to just add to the fact that, you know, you can't become who you want to be by remaining who you are. So at some point, you have to make that decision to say, okay, there's a shift that needs to happen.
That's, if you're taking notes, write that down. Yeah, say it again.
So I think, you know, when you think about making a shift and starting to move in a positive direction, I think it really begins, and we have another acronym for shift, and we really do this because we often say, you know, parents, husbands and wives, they need more than just prayer. They need a plan. So give me some hope, give me some handles. What can we do?
Faith and works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the S simply stands for start with the end in mind. And this is all about a shift in overall direction. So the question is for any couple, for any family, is really sit down and ask themselves some hard questions. And really it begins with, okay, well, what is our vision for our marriage? What is our vision for our children? What is the vision for our family? Who do we ultimately want to become? And so, as the scripture teaches us in Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish. And so therefore, when there's no vision in the marriage, when there's no vision in the home, the marriage dies, the family dies. And so we have to resurrect that vision. And so we have to start with the end in mind. So it's asking those what could be, what should be questions about where we ultimately want to go. And then the H simply stands for hold to core values. And this is all about a shift in focus. And so it goes back to, okay, what is it that's important to us? What do we really believe? What are the guardrails and guidelines that are going to navigate our family so that we can make wise decisions to get us moving in the direction that we ultimately want to become, or ultimately want to end up in?
In a lot of places, that really defines your yes and your no.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I was a kid, if I went into my dad's room and I asked him a question, 99% of the time, I already knew what the answer was. And sometimes I was hoping he might have changed his mind, but I knew what his yeses and nos would be, you know? And I think that that's an important thing for families to really define because, unfortunately, sometimes your children will act like saboteurs. They try to get between mom and dad. If they know dad's gonna say no, maybe we can work mom towards a yes and leverage her yes against his no. And if mom and dad, if they have the same core values and they understand what the no is, then that stops right away.
Absolutely. And what that does is it helps you also when there's a myriad of choices and options that families have today.
And
to
everybody's
sign
doing
up
it.
for all these things. Well, at the end of and there's nothing wrong with a lot of those things.
Correct.
But what having strong, healthy core values does, it puts your priorities in perspective, but it helps you to be able to say no to the good so you can say yes to the best. And that helps you keep moving forward towards your vision. And then
Without guilt.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of people who be like, why aren't you doing this? Everybody's doing this. And you're like, I got to make the best decision for everybody who sleeps at my house.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
Yeah,
important.
and so, I often say that the new trinity, if you will, is the 3 A's. It's athletics, arts, and academics. Well, all 3 of those things are wonderful things, but those things in and of themselves can sometimes compete with the things that matter most. And so you got to hold tight to those core values and the things that truly matter. And so when you think about the start with the end in mind, hold the core values, and then we go to the whole issue of identifying what we call your GPS. And
Tell me about this.
So this is all about a shift in motivation. So GPS simply stands for your goals, your passions, and your struggles. And so when you think about your vision going in a certain direction, when you think about the core values that you hold tight to, that are your guardrails, your guidelines, that keeps you moving in the direction you want to go, the GPS is there to really help reinforce really the things that you begin to break down as far as your goals, and then what it is that you're passionate about, because everybody's wired different in the family. So we have personality tests at familyshift.com people can go to, learn about their 5 different temperaments. Yeah. Trust me. Yeah, everybody has their own bent. But when you think about the passions that are unique to us, those can channel a lot of positive energy.
It's fuel.
Gives focus,
Yes.
absolutely. And it can bring new hope and new life to dreams and aspirations that we have.
Passion is fuel, and fuel feeds fire.
Absolutely.
The question is, what's burning? Is this a good burn or a bad burn? Because there's
Absolutely.
passion involved if it's burning.
Right.
And one of the challenges back to the drift is there's a lot of people that lose passion. They lose their fuel.
Absolutely.
And so the GPS goals and passion and then struggles.
Yes.
So this is the honest part where you have to know what you're not good at.
I think so
Right?
often it is. I think what happens a lot of times, the weaknesses sometimes, can be the thing that everybody kind of puts their focus on. But at the same time, sometimes we have setbacks. those unexpected things that happen. And so rather than allowing that to kind of sabotage a marriage or sabotage a family, well, I believe our struggles can also become our greatest story. I believe our pain can become even our greatest platform. And so it's a matter of leveraging those struggles into something positive so that we can leverage that in a way that makes a difference in other people's lives. And then, of course, the next letter, as we keep moving forward, is the F, which simply stands for find life-giving friendships. And so that's all about a shift in reinforcement, associating with the right people who are in alignment with your vision, your values, and all the things that you truly are passionate about.
And it might mean that you have fewer friends.
Yes.
Almost always it means that. Yes. It's one of the greatest things we can teach our kids.
I was gonna say,
is how to find. That's right.
Well, it's not only known by the company you keep, but as I grew up, it became very apparent that there were people that were in my life for a season, and maybe it was a sports season, and maybe it was a school season, but there was that day where the path I was on and the path they were on could not be the same unless one of us dramatically changed.
Absolutely.
And that's not when you choose friendship over your future. You know what I'm saying? You say, God bless you, see you down the road.
Absolutely.
I got you in pictures, but we're going this way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that can be a very difficult transition in life. It's always hard, but at the same time, we have to align ourselves with people who are like-minded, who share the same vision and values, because life's too short to get distracted by relationships that are going to get you distracted or get you.
And there's always a new friend waiting up the road.
Yeah.
And when you choose the path God wants you on, He's got somebody waiting for you up there saying, hey, I've been looking for you.
Absolutely.
And the T?
Yeah, the T is teach.
Teach by example.
Teach by example.
Nothing greater than that.
Yeah, and that's, that's in many ways somewhat obvious, but when you think about it, we have to be who we want our children to become, because our children ultimately will become who we are.
Correct.
And so we reproduce who we
Whether
are.
you want it or not.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
So they're watching us how we live, they're listening to how we talk, and we have to be mindful of that, but make sure that we are intentional with everything that we do.
Absolutely.
Because we want to leave our kids more than just with memories, which are great, but ultimately our intention is to leave them a legacy.
And equipped to succeed.
Absolutely,
No
doubt.
When you talk about teach by example, I can speak to that because I have a very real and present example in my life. And I can't tell you how many times at this age and stage in my life with 17 years of marriage and 4 kids, I go, I've seen Dad do this. And if nothing else, it gives you the confidence to know if he could, I can too.
You better believe it.
I may not remember all the steps, but he survived. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so that's a big part of it. You're hearing a lot of information come at you in a very quick hurry. It sounds simple, but simple's not always easy, which is why you need to get this book, Family Shift. It not only gives you the information, but it holds you accountable for what you need to be accomplishing to bring your family closer together. When we come back to the difference, Rodney and I are going to have a conversation without the ladies, because sometimes we can be more honest when it's just us, and we might give the girls a chance to do the same. You're watching The Difference. We'll be right back after this.
The life of a child is precious in God's eyes, and the gift of life is something you can become a part of today. We at Hagee Ministries are offering you the opportunity to change the life of a child and mother by becoming a legacy partner. As a legacy partner, your monthly gift supports the Sanctuary of Hope, that is a one-of-a-kind safe haven that provides a home to single expectant mothers and offers resources that will enable them to find success in their communities. The Sanctuary of Hope exists to provide a loving, safe environment where both baby and mother can receive the education, care, and hope they so desperately need. When you partner with us, our legacy becomes your legacy, and together we are impacting lives and transforming nations for Jesus Christ. There has never been a better time to share the love of Christ with a mother and a child than right now. Become a legacy partner today. Call the number on the screen or go to jhm.org/partner.
Here at Hagee Ministries, we're excited to announce our digital web platforms that provide you with live streaming services, special messages, and series, all through our video on-demand applications. Our Hagee Ministries channel app is now available on Apple TV, Amazon, and Roku streaming platforms. You can also watch our services live on your favorite social media channels, including YouTube, Facebook, or online at jhm.org/watch.
Rodney and I are over here at the Moment with Matt set, and you know, Rodney, one of the things that is really prevalent in the world today is a generation of fathers who grew up fatherless. And they feel ill-equipped to be able to accomplish successfully what they're supposed to do for their kids. What is the advice you give to men when it comes to the most important thing they can do for their children?
Well, I think first and foremost is just to speak life into the men themselves and to know that, you know, maybe they didn't have a good example, but just to simply know that they are loved and accepted and they have a father who is a father to the fatherless.
Absolutely.
And so when we draw our identity from him, we find our security and our confidence that comes from him and him alone, then that allows us to be able to speak life into the lives of our children and to ultimately live our life in a way that's able to show them really how to live a godly life by the way we live each and every day, by the way we communicate, and if we are married, I think the greatest single thing a dad can do for his kids is to love his wife and to establish that relationship first, allow that relationship to then spill over into the relationship with the kids. But even if they're a single dad or whether they're in a blended family situation, as we were talking about earlier, I think it really comes down to, okay, who do we want to become? What is the vision that I have as a dad for our family, and how can I help set the example and lead the way in accomplishing that vision in our home?
And I think for a lot of men, they have to accept the fact that they are the example.
Absolutely.
Whether they want to be or not.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the things about shift is the T is teach by example. That's a responsibility you can't really escape. If you're there, they're watching.
Absolutely.
If you're not there, you're watching. If you're speaking, they're listening.
Yeah.
If you're not speaking, they're listening. And they are always geared to do whatever it is you showed them how to do.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, one of the things that you've established in your book is when you teach by example, you probably have to own what you need to do better.
Yeah.
You know, you're not always going to show your kids the best example, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is look at your kid and say, I could have done better there, and here's how.
Yeah. And I think I've often said, you know, if you want to really find out the spiritual temperature in the average home, all you have to do is put the thermometer in the father's mouth. So it really does start with us. We have to set the example, set the pace in the home so that everybody else will follow in those footsteps in a way that is intentional and ultimately generational so that we can make an impact on generations to come.
That goes to the goal. I think the goal for every man has to be that they want their children and their grandchildren to live a wonderful life regardless of what that looks like. You know, they want to be able to look, 100 years down the road and know that they did something that was permanent and long-lasting.
Absolutely, and that's the legacy.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the beauty about being able to live without regrets and to know that we can leave something behind for our children, which is a legacy of faith and something that will ultimately God will use in their lives to pass on to the next generation. And so I think when men just really and Matt, it's really just taking a lot of pressure off of themselves too. Men carry a lot of pressure from financial responsibilities with work and just the domestic, responsibilities and everything that goes with that. But at the end of the day, we have to just know that God has placed us where He has us for a purpose. And that is to make an imprint, to make a lasting impression and impact on our children, on our family relationships, so that that legacy will continue as God intended.
Well, God will help you lead with legacy and purpose. And the ladies are in Kendal's corner, and they're going to talk about how you can keep your family on track.
So I'm sitting in Kendal's corner with Michelle, and we're talking about the women. God says that the woman, the wife, is the home. She is the person of the home, the heart of the home.
That's right.
And so talking about family shift and how do we get our kids to commit? And how do we get, with our schedules, we're running in 100 different directions. How do we get involved and get our kids to get involved in this family shift?
Well, you know what? We were talking about teaching by example. The guys just talked about that as well. And I learned from my family, what you put first at the beginning is what you are at the end.
That's right.
And what we teach our kids is what we're putting first in our life. First thing in the morning, what are we putting first? What do they see us do? And what are we putting into our life, the big rocks that we're putting in and committing to, so that we have room for the smaller things in our lives?
That's right, that's right. You know, I even have moms who'll say, well, I'm so busy, I don't have time to get into the Word of God, but you do. Bring your kids in bed with you. Read the Word of God with them. Whatever you're studying, your Devo, whatever you're trying, bring them in with you and involve them in the teaching. And you can always find a little bit of time. And so we talk about commitment. How do we get our kids to commit to doing this family shift?
Well, it's, you know, again, holding to those.
You have 3 kids that are older than mine, so I'm looking for wisdom here. My kids are teenagers. I'm thinking, okay, we're going through the stages of teenage, you know, maybe, but how do you get them to get involved?
I think defining those core values is so important, because that's what you can hold on to, you know. And I think if Jesus take the wheel, I'm thinking that we've got to hold on to those core values, and whatever that is that you decide that is in your family. Whether for us, it's like generosity is our way. Awesome. Positive is our spirit. You know, and those type things that when they begin to drift, you've already established
and in your
what
book,
you are.
You had the whole play out. I mean, like, so you took your whole Gage family vision, you took the mission statement, and you had it all written out.
Yes.
And I think that's important for moms. You know, it tells us in Habakkuk, write out the vision and make it plain. Write it so plainly that you can go back to it and say, this is what we're, as a family, doing. And I encourage moms, those that are watching, take time with your family, get your family around the dinner table or in the living room and write that vision, write out your core values.
Yes, on our website at familyshift.com, we actually walk you through how you can do that, as well as in the book. But yes, you can do it step by step. We did that when our kids were in middle school. So there's really, now is a good time to start, whatever age they are, and it's never too late.
It's never too late. And you also have a podcast that I watched. Tell us how to find your podcast. We just look up Rodney and Michelle Gage, look up, and you can talk. You said 20 things to start in 2020.
Yes,
which is amazing.
Oh, thank you. A friend gave us that idea. But it's just the Family Shift podcast. And we love just talking about life and leadership and how we can lead our kids, and just the things that we can do that are practical, everyday things that we can do to help our family live with greater intention.
Greater intention. That's awesome. Michelle, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me,
Thank you. We'll be right back with The Difference.
Do you want to learn more about the show? Follow us on Facebook at Matt and Kendal Hagee, on Instagram at Matt Hagee and at Kendal Hagee, on Twitter at Matt Hagee and at Kendal Hagee. The Difference with Matt and Kendal Hagee.
Kendal and I want to thank our guests, Rodney and Michelle Gage, for coming and sharing from their recent book, Family Shift. If you'd like to find out more about how you can take your family through a very important shift in your life, you can go to familyshift.com.
Yes, and you can also find them on podcast. You can also find us on our podcast, or you can visit us at jchim.org or subscribe to our podcast. We would love to hear from you, and we want to stay connected because God is making a difference, and He's going to make a difference in your life today.
If you're looking for solutions, you can contact us here at Hagee Ministries. We have prayer partners who are standing by. If you'd like to hear a topic covered on The Difference, we encourage you to connect with us over Facebook, Instagram, social media platforms, or just leaving something in the comments on our website, again, at jhm.org. To Rodney and Michelle Gage, God bless you, thank you, and we pray that this show has made a difference in your life.